Fun fact for today, instead of using my tripod, I have propped my camera up on my currently reading pile, which is embarrassingly big. There's new Doctor Who, and if you hadn't noticed, I'm British, which means that I have some opinions on new Doctor Who. I'm going to talk about the new episode in two parts. First part will be spoiler free, the second part won't, and I'll tell you when we switch over. First off, I think that Peter Capaldi did an excellent job of his first episode and is definitely very different from Matt Smith. So if maybe you haven't been watching it because you didn't like Matt Smith or you didn't like something in particular about it, I'd say try again with Peter Capaldi, because he's a very different Doctor. And if you didn't like Clara, I'd say give it another go, because I felt like she was a lot better in this episode than she has been. I like Clara, but there are times where she annoys me, but it's often related to plot points, so Clara feels like, at least in the first episode, her character was a bit more active and a bit more rounded than she has been in the past. As you probably know, this episode also featured the Paternoster gang, who I really love, and I like having like a set of characters that aren't in it all the time but who you can go back to and there are lots of episodes with, as in a few episodes with, and you get to know them. It's enough to get to know them better, but not enough for them to kind of overshadow the companion thing. The other, I think, big change in this episode was the fact that it was feature length. It was an hour and 15 minutes as opposed to the more usual 45 minutes. Which, in this episode, I think it didn't feel long when I was watching it, but looking back, I'm not sure that there was enough plot to warrant it being that long. And I'm worried that in the future they're going to continue to make it long kind of needlessly and just not have a big enough plot to fill that time and just fill it with like boringness. That worries me. It worries me that that's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't, but Okay, so this is the point where I'm now talking about things that maybe plot points and spoilers and things. I'll be honest, basically all of the things that I've got written down to talk about are things that annoyed me. So I'm gonna say now, overall I thought it was a decent enough episode, especially for like a first outing. I thought it did well. It did credit to Capaldi. He could be amazing with what he was given, but it wasn't great. It wasn't an amazing episode, and there were lots of issues that I'm now going to talk about. The first thing that annoyed me was the CGI in the first shot, because I just felt like it wasn't necessary, and it was more like, ooh, we have some money, we can do CGI now, look at the pretty CGI, and it just wasn't that pretty. It just wasn't that good or really necessary. The other things that annoyed me were the massive plot holes. The massive plot holes and also the overly self-referencingness. But the most annoying one was that Clara, she remembered the Day of the Doctor, I think that was what it was called, the special with David Tennant and John Hurt. She's at the very least met 3 different versions of the Doctor at once in that episode. She remembers that. So why is she so angsty about the Doctor being old and having regenerated? Because it's just, yeah. If it had been pretty much any other companion, like, that episode would have been fine in that respect. But that was just really irritating. It felt like it was just completely ignoring anything that had gone before, really, in regards to Clara's storyline. Although it feels like that a lot, actually, with Clara, in that she doesn't really develop. She's just kind of the same every episode. Although she was, on that subject, she was a lot better in this episode, as I said. I did quite like having Eleven do the phone call at the end. I did like that. But again, with what Clara's history should be, that shouldn't have been necessary and didn't make sense to me with that, what I've just said. Also, the self-referencing, it just felt like it was done to a point where nothing felt new. Like, the main plot of the episode was very similar to the girl in the fireplace, which I know that was the point, but it didn't feel like a reference, it felt like recycling the plot. And another part of the annoying thing about the whole self-referencing thing is that it's just Stephen Moffat stuff. Like, would it kill him to reference something other than what he's written? Seriously? Really? 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 And in terms of Peter Capaldi specifically, I'm sort of still reserving judgment about exactly what I think of him until I've seen more episodes, which is what I did at this point with Matt Smith. So I'm there. Yeah, that's normal. I need to see more of him before I can decide whether I really like him or not. Especially because so far he seems to be quite similar, or at least is over-referencing David Tennant's Doctor, I think. There was the fact that he spent half the episode in his pyjamas, which is what Ken did. He spent half the episode, more than half the episode, in his pyjamas. Plus it doesn't help that every time he does that, or every time he like acts overly Scottish, I just think of the fact that, well, I heard somewhere that David Tennant wanted to do it in his natural Scottish accent when he was the Doctor, and he wasn't allowed. So I just think of like David Tennant at home crying like, I wasn't allowed to be Scottish. Why is this stupid Glaswegian person being a Scottish Doctor? Because I wanted to be a Scottish Doctor and I wasn't allowed. So that's all I have written down to say. I'm not gonna continue rambling about how hideous the plot holes were. No doubt I will have some more opinions specifically on Peter Capaldi's Doctor once the series goes on, so I'll probably see you again with those. But until then, TTFN.